Hi. One of the things we all have to figure out in life is how to deal with authority. Authority is a piece of life's puzzle that we sometimes have difficulty fitting into our lives. In an ideal world, we'd all be able to, sit down and talk things out and come to an agreement on how everybody and everything should work. But since none of us is perfect and we have trouble coming to agreement, we often turn to authority to decide things. Now, when an authority figure sees some things the same as we do, we often praise them in their, quote, wisdom and fairness. And when they see things differently than us, we often criticize them, calling them biased or uninformed or ignorant or dictatorial or some other negative word. Dealing with authority will probably always be a challenge for us, but there are some things we can do to make the task a little less stressful and go a little bit better. Now, there are many authorities we deal with. There's the legal system, consists of the police, the judges, the lawyers, of civil law, etc. There are religious authorities, including religious laws and the religious hierarchy. Then there are the people we consider authorities because of their expertise in their professions, like doctors, nurses, therapists, scientists, etc. There are also people we look to as authorities because of personal relationships with them, like close friends or a wise grandparent. In dealing with any authority, it's helpful oftentimes to be aware of our, quote, default setting regarding authority. Each of us has our own basic idea about authority in general, and we've adopted that idea because of our experiences with authority as we grew up. That is, our experiences with parental authority. For example, if our parents were fairly consistent and logical with the rules they set and how they enforced the rules and how the rules applied to all the members of the family equally, we probably tend to approach authority today in a positive manner. If, however, our parents were kind of haphazard or inconsistent or incoherent in setting and enforcing rules, or if there was much family chaos for some other reason while we were growing up, our default view of authority today might be one of mistrust, wondering if it knows what it's doing. Now, some people come from families where there were strict rules for every small aspect of life, with no gray area and no flexibility, very rigid. And there were severe and disproportionate consequences for breaking even the smallest rule. Now, these people tend to either rebel against authority on principle, as they did with their parents, or they follow authority blindly without questions, like lemmings jumping off a cliff. Now, one side note in all of this, I've always been amazed at how people's view of authority applies to their view of God also. People often come to me for spiritual direction and describe difficulties with their relationship with God. They may feel God is a harsh taskmaster, keeping track of everything that they do wrong and ready to send them to hell. Or they may feel God is uncaring and doesn't even know they exist and is unaware of their situation. Or they may feel God is just playing games with them, randomly rewarding or punishing them. It's often the case that their experience with authority growing up mirrors their view of God as authority. I think it's helpful to be aware of our basic view of authority so that we can take it into account when dealing with authority. It's kind of like each of us has a different colored glasses, which affects our view of authority. Now, if we're aware of what, quote, tint our glasses are, kind of how we generally see authority, we can choose to adjust our vision and our judgment about authority and come up with a more accurate view. Control is usually the basic issue when it comes to problems with authority for us. We don't like to have someone else controlling us in some way. But that's pretty much the definition of authority, whether it's the policeman giving us a ticket for speeding, or our boss telling us what to do at work, or our parents setting a curfew. We feel like a victim because it seems we have no choice if we want to keep our job or stay out of jail. One strategy to handle this is to focus on what we choose in any situation, rather than on what the authority is choosing or is doing. If I know that I'm choosing to stay in my job and do what my boss says so that I can support my family, it can somewhat change my perception of what is going on. In that case, I become the one deciding what to do, not just my boss. Now, that doesn't change the job of my boss, but it can change my attitude a little bit and make the situation a little bit more bearable. It's also important to deal honestly with any authority which proves to be unethical or immoral or function unjustly. This is, of course, a judgment call, but authorities are made up of humans, and humans are not perfect. Sometimes we have to choose whether to go along with an authority that violates our values and ethics or challenge it in some way. Legitimately and appropriately challenging authority isn't easy, but it may be a way we hold on to our integrity as people. And that is important to our mental, moral, and spiritual health. Like any other piece of the human puzzle, dealing with authority is a challenge. But hopefully some of what I've shared here will be helpful to you in doing this.